Ever wondered why being a leftist is considered dangerous? Let's journey back in history to find out. The division between the political right and left began with the Jacobins during the French Revolution. This ideological rift deepened with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which heralded the advent of the deadliest ideology in human history: leftism. Under Joseph Stalin's rule, concentration camps became sites of mass murder. The death toll in the communist Soviet Union was a staggering 20 million people. But the bloodshed didn't stop there. In China, under the banner of leftism, 65 million lives were snuffed out. Vietnam, North Korea, and Cambodia also experienced the deadly grip of leftism, each losing 2 million lives. But the victims of communism weren't just those who faced firing squads or languished in labor camps. There were also the innocent unborn. Abortion, which has claimed countless lives worldwide, found its first legal footing in a leftist regime. The Soviet Union, in 1920, became the first country to legalize abortion. Latin America followed suit with Cuba legalizing abortion in 1965. What's chilling is that these aren't mere numbers. Each statistic represents a human life, a story cut short, a potential never realized. Each one is a testament to the lethal consequences of an ideology that promised equality but delivered death. The history of leftism is a tale of destruction, from the guillotines of the Jacobins to the gulags of the Bolsheviks. It's a trail marked by the blood of millions who fell victim to an ideology that prized power over human life. So this isn't just history, it's a warning about the dangers of ideologies that promise utopia, but deliver dystopia. So the first reason why being a leftist is harmful lies in the deadly history of this ideology. Moving on, let's discuss how the leftist ideology often sides with the criminals. This perspective, which is often rooted in a desire to make society more equitable, can sometimes go too far. It's been observed that leftists tend to victimize thieves, painting them as mere victims of society. They argue that society oppresses these individuals by not affording them the opportunities to thrive. This narrative, however, overlooks a crucial aspect of the equation: the individuals who work tirelessly to build equity and security for themselves and their families. These individuals, unfortunately, often become the victims of theft and violence. The stark reality is that every day, hardworking people are robbed and even murdered by thieves who, rather than striving to earn their own way, choose to take what they need from others. In a civilized society, such actions would result in severe consequences. Thieves would be held accountable for their actions and would face appropriate punishments. However, in countries where left-wing policies reign supreme, punishments for thieves are often less severe and less strict. The justification of crimes against innocent people and private or public property is a troubling aspect of the leftist ideology. It's a perspective that can inadvertently encourage criminal behavior rather than deter it. This leads us to the second reason. The leftist ideology often justifies crimes against humanity. Ever thought about how free you would be under a leftist government? Let's delve into that. Imagine a world where your ability to express your thoughts, your freedom of speech, is stifled, where your entrepreneurial spirit is suppressed, and your freedom to build wealth is constrained. This is often the reality under leftist governments. Once they seize power, they tend to curtail these freedoms. They do so under the guise of equality and fairness, but at what cost? Let's look at the freedom ranking from the Heritage Foundation. It paints a telling picture. The countries that rank the lowest in terms of freedom are, more often than not, those governed by communist or socialist ideologies. In 2022, the three last positions belong to Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea. This isn't a mere coincidence. It's a pattern that has repeated itself throughout history, across continents. Why does this happen? Because in their quest to achieve a utopian society, leftist governments tend to centralize power. They control everything from media to education, from businesses to personal wealth. In the process, they strip away the freedoms that we often take for granted. This isn't just about losing the freedom to speak your mind or the freedom to build wealth. It's about losing the freedom to dream, to aspire, to strive for a better future. It's about losing the freedom to be you. And there we have the third reason. Leftist governments often limit individual freedoms. What happens when everyone gets the same reward, regardless of their effort? Let's find out. In a communist system, the motivation to work harder, be more productive or innovative diminishes significantly. Why? Because the fruits of your labor aren't yours alone. Any extra productivity and gains you achieve are distributed among others who may not have worked as hard. This notion of equal distribution, while sounding noble in fact, discourages individual initiative and creativity. A key driver of progress and innovation is the incentive to excel, to outdo oneself and others. But in communism, this incentive is virtually absent. As a result, communist societies often struggle with productivity and the quality of their products. The products they produce are frequently substandard because, let's face it, when everyone gets the same reward, the drive to excel just isn't there. This brings us to the fourth reason: communism takes away the drive to excel. Let's now discuss the impact of leftist governments on the quality of life. It's a common pattern seen across nations and decades. From Stalin's regime in the former Soviet Union to Mao Zedong's China, and more recently, Hugo Chávez's Venezuela, the quality of life radically declines under leftist governments. Take for instance the Great Famine of 1932 to 1933 under Stalin's regime. This devastating event led to the untimely death of 4 million Soviets, an unimaginable tragedy that was a direct result of disastrous government policies. Fast forward to Mao Zedong's China, where at one point, 80% of the population lived in poverty. The so-called Great Leap Forward turned out to be a catastrophic leap backward for the Chinese people, with millions condemned to a life of hardship and deprivation. It was only after Deng Xiaoping's 1978 economic reforms to adopt capitalist growth strategies that poverty levels began to fall. In more recent history, we have the example of Venezuela under Hugo Chávez. Once one of Latin America's most prosperous nations, his socialism of the 21st century led to the erosion of the country's economy. His disruptive socialist agenda saw the country's wealth diminish, plunging the Venezuelans into an economic crisis from which they are still struggling to recover. These examples are not anomalies, but rather, they are the devastating norm under leftist governments. The fifth reason is clear: leftist governments often lead to a decline in the quality of life. Finally, let's explore the type of people who are often drawn to the leftist ideology. It's a fascinating study of human nature, of how easy it is to blame others when things go south. Leftists, you see, have a knack for attributing their own failures to external abstract factors. It's never about their personal shortcomings or lack of effort. No, it's always the society's fault, capitalism's fault, or because of a supposed lack of opportunities. This blame game, this abdication of personal responsibility, is a key characteristic of the leftist mentality. It's easier to point fingers than to look inward, to take responsibility, and to strive for better. It's simpler to be a victim than a victor. Now, let's talk about the socialist and communist notion of wealth redistribution. It's a seductive idea, don't you think? Those who have succeeded, who have worked hard, saved, and invested, are expected to share their wealth. Why? So that those who didn't put in the same effort can enjoy the fruits of another's labor. It's not about fairness or justice. It's about enabling laziness, rewarding mediocrity, and punishing success. In essence, leftism becomes a refuge for those unwilling to strive for success, for those who prefer to ride on the coattails of others' achievements. It's an ideology that fosters a culture of dependency, a culture that rewards the passive and punishes the proactive. This brings us to our final reason: leftism is often the ideology of losers and the lazy. Now that we've covered the 6 main reasons, let's summarize. Leftism has a deadly history, responsible for the loss of millions of lives across the globe, from the Soviet Union to China and beyond. It's an ideology that often sides with criminals, offering them leniency, and justifying their actions as reactions to societal oppression. Once in power, leftist governments typically reduce freedoms, stifling free speech and the ability to build wealth. The principles of communism, a key component of leftism, discourage productivity and innovation by promoting equal distribution of wealth, irrespective of individual effort. Leftist governments have repeatedly shown to deteriorate quality of life, plunging their countries into poverty and hardship. Lastly, leftism serves as a refuge for those unwilling to take responsibility for their failures, blaming external factors and demanding wealth redistribution. So, next time you hear about leftism, remember these 6 reasons and consider their implications.